Jin-Woo walks through them with an attitude. He says, "Who is next, pray?" Then scene shift to another dungeon. The Monarch of Frost says, "It seems there is no trace of the fragment of brilliant light here either." Just then, the Monarch of Yogamut appears behind him and says, "I have good news for you. You should go to South Korea. The fragment of light is there, and so is the Shadow Monarch." The Frost Monarch smiles at this and asks, "Why is the Shadow Monarch working with the rulers? The architect told us that the rulers are our enemies. In that case, he should have joined us instead." As they are talking, a mysterious guy suddenly appears. His eyes glow with a golden aura, signifying that this man is the vessel of the fragment of light. Friends, angels cannot descend to Earth themselves, so they choose humans as their vessels. Yogamut says, "Take care of this chosen one," and then leaves. A battle begins between the angel's vessel and the Monarch of Frost. We then see Jin-Woo standing before the dungeon boss. The boss was confident that he would win because his hidden men were waiting in the bushes. However, when he called them, no one emerged. Jin-Woo's army had already taken care of them. This enraged the boss, and the battlefield turned into total chaos. Jin-Woo stood back, completely calm, and eventually the boss was defeated. Before dying, Jin-Woo asked him some questions, but as always, the architect system displayed an error, preventing him from getting any answers. Just then, a loot box appeared, and inside he found a black key, the key to Karathian Temple, the place where everything had begun. The description mentioned a time limit, after which Jin-Woo could return to the temple. Jin-Woo recalled his past, how weak he once was, how he gained power inside the temple, and now the system was taking him back to where it all started. He realized that this was his destiny. Jin-Woo was now more confident than ever. He was no longer the weak man he used to be. This time he was fully prepared to face the architect.
Then we see Jin-Ho sitting in the office, responding to Jin-Woo's haters. Just then, Jin-Woo arrives with a bunch of rare Arsene stones. Jin-Ho gets excited because they were about to recruit another member for their guild, and now they wouldn't have to worry about salaries anymore. Jin-Ho suggests several names for the guild, but Jin-Woo says, "Our guild is based on solo hunting, so how about we call it the Solo Play Guild?" Jin-Ho doesn't like the name at all. Just then, the doorbell rings. Outside, it's none other than Hunter Cha Hai-in, who has come to join Jin-Woo's guild. Jin-Woo is confused. He wonders if Mr. Choi-jong kicked her out of her previous guild or if Chairman Go Gun-hee asked her to join theirs, but Cha Hae-in clearly denies both possibilities. Jin-Woo then asks, "So what exactly is the reason you want to join our solo play guild?" Hearing the guild's name, Miss Cha gets embarrassed. Jin-Woo is confused by the situation. He can clearly see that Miss Cha's expressions and heartbeat are increasing. Jin-Woo asks, "Don't you already have an agreement with your previous guild?" But Miss Cha is willing to pay the penalty for breaking the contract. Jin-Woo then says, "Our guild doesn't have proper resources, so we won't be able to compensate you according to your caliber." Hunter Cha firmly replies, "I don't need any of that." Jin-Woo is doing his best to figure out why Hunter Cha wants to join his guild, but even he has a clue. When he first met her, she didn't sense the foul smell she usually did. Later, she found out that Jin-Woo was an S-rank hunter. Every time she thought she had no time for these things, Jin-Woo was there. When she was scared, even on the verge of death, Jin-Woo was the light in her darkness. Miss Cha keeps thinking about how to tell Jin-Woo all of this, but her blush keeps getting worse. But our dumb boy Jin-Woo still doesn't get why Miss Cha is blushing. She simply says, "I just want to live my life comfortably." Jin-Woo thinks she's probably around 20 or 23 years old, yet she has the huge responsibility of being an S-rank hunter. Jin-Woo thinks for a moment and then says, "To join our guild, you'll have to pass an entrance test." Miss Cha looks confident, knowing that for this test, she would have to defeat Jin-Woo's most powerful shadow. For the test, they choose the gymnasium. The gymnasium was quite far, so this was a great opportunity for Jin-Woo to test his shadow exchange ability. Jin-Woo says, "We won't take the gate." He then calls Miss Cha closer. Miss Cha starts blushing. Jin-Woo chants shadow exchange, and a black aura surrounds them. In the next instant, they are already inside the gymnasium. Miss Cha can't believe it. Jin-Woo now fully understands that shadow exchange works just like a gate, and anyone within its range can be transported along with him. However, it has a limit. It can only be used once every 3 hours. Then Miss Cha suddenly says, "I forgot to bring my weapon." Jin-Woo smirks and asks, "Are you talking about that pickaxe?" Miss Cha gets embarrassed because that wasn't actually her weapon, but Jin-Woo was just teasing her. Hunter Cha picks up a sword from the gymnasium and confidently says, "Let's begin the test." Jin-Woo realizes that if he summons any ordinary shadow, Miss Cha will easily defeat it. So instead, he calls his second most powerful shadow, Igris. To win, Miss Cha needs to defeat the Shadow. Jin-Woo knew that if he summoned Baru, it could be traumatizing for Miss Cha. So even though he had promised otherwise, he decided to summon his second strongest Shadow instead. Miss Cha was ready. Jin-Woo hands Igris the Demon King's sword. With the sword in hand, Igris moves forward with attitude and strikes the ground so hard that the walls crack. But Miss Cha dodges it effortlessly and counters with a powerful attack. Meanwhile, in the chairman's office, Go-Gunny senses something unusual. He remembers that no one had booked the gymnasium for today, so he orders the CCTV to be turned on. On the screen, he sees Jin-Woo and Miss Cha together. He smirks and without saying anything, turns off the CCTV. Inside the gymnasium, Miss Cha successfully defeats Igris. She then demands that Jin-Woo summon his strongest Shadow. Jin-Woo warns her, "You could get hurt," but Miss Cha doesn't care. Jin-Woo then chants Baru's name. The atmosphere shifts. Miss Cha can feel the tension as Baru, wrapped in dark aura, appears behind Jin-Woo. Baru bows slightly and asks, "My king, what should I do with this human?" Jin-Woo commands, "Defeat her without injuring her." Baru steps forward and roars loudly. His voice is so powerful that the gymnasium's glass shatters. Miss Cha is shocked. Jin-Woo reminds Baru, "If you hurt her, I won't forgive you." Baru acknowledges his king's command. Miss Cha sees an opening and moves in for an attack, but before she can strike, Baru appears behind her in an instant. It's just like before. This time Miss Cha was prepared. She swiftly turns and attacks, but Baru catches her sword with one hand. He calmly says, "My king has ordered me to defeat you without hurting you, so I will simply show you the difference in our power. This will be easy." Miss Cha pulls back her sword and starts attacking from all angles, but Baru dodges every single strike without even moving from his spot. Then Baru lets out a powerful scream. The sound alone sends Miss Cha sliding backward across the gymnasium floor. Jin-Woo knew the fight was already over, but Miss Cha wasn't ready to give up yet. Jin-Woo was confused because Baru wasn't like his other shadows. Unlike them, Baru was intelligent, but his primary purpose for existing was to kill hunters. Jin-Woo could feel that Baru's killing intent was increasing. Baru then threatens Miss Cha and launches a direct attack. Miss Cha dodges and uses her skill sword dance to launch a flurry of attacks on Baru. She even manages to land one successful hit. However, Miss Cha was running low on mana. She could only use her skill one more time, so she gathered all her strength and activated her second skill, Blade of Light. As she charged toward Baru, ready to land the final hit, Jin-Woo suddenly sensed something dangerous. Baru was being overwhelmed by the command given to him by his queen. Kill hunters. Baru completely lost control and was about to strike Miss Cha for real when Jin-Woo stopped him just in time. Baru immediately backed away and dropped to his knees, bowing in front of Jin-Woo. Jin-Woo turns to Miss Cha and asks, "Are you okay? You didn't have to go this far just to join our small guild." Then he pauses for a moment before adding, "Wait, why are you pushing yourself so much? Don't tell me you're interested in me?" Jin-Woo just said this casually, not thinking it was actually true. But then Miss Cha starts blushing. She looks him straight in the eyes and says, "Yes, I am interested in you." Then we see a scene at the Federal Bureau of Hunters in the USA where Michael and Miss Sellner are explaining the entire situation with Jin-Woo to the director. The director asks, "So is Sung Jin-Woo equivalent to a national-level hunter?" Miss Sellner calmly explains, "An awakened person draws their power from the other side within themselves. I can sense the connection between them and that side. Sometimes the power from the other side is overwhelmingly strong, making the awakened person appear surrounded by a brilliant light." Then trembling, she continues, "But that wasn't the case with him. When I looked inside him, the darkness within him stared back at me. It wasn't just inside him, he is the darkness itself." Shocked, the director asks, "Are you saying that Sung Jin-Woo is evil?" Miss Sellner replies, "I don't know if he's evil or not. All I know is that his powers don't come from the other side. He draws his power from within himself. That's why his strength has no limits." The director thanks Miss Sellner and asks Michael to follow him. "If we can't bring him in using Miss Sellner's abilities, we'll have to resort to another method. Do you remember the first S-rank gate?" "Of course. How could I forget? The USA gathered hunters from all over the world, but only 5 survived. The government awarded them the national-level hunter title. A single beast, Kamish, slaughtered countless hunters. Would you believe me if I said that Kamish left us a gift?" The director then opens a locked gate, revealing a mysterious stone, a piece of Kamish's corpse. It had been 8 years since the Kamish raid, yet no hunter had been able to absorb its power. To add to the eerie atmosphere, Kamish's massive skeleton stood before them, still releasing an overwhelming aura even after 8 years. Now the scene moves to Jin-Woo's house. Jin-Woo looks at himself in the mirror, thinking, "Since I awakened, my height has grown and my body has become more refined, but I don't think I'm handsome. Honestly, I'm just average." Guys, if this man is average, then what are we? Maybe we don't even deserve to live on this planet. Jin-Woo then approaches his sister Jin-Ha and asks, "How do I look?" Annoyed, Jinha responds, "To me, you're just an idiot." The two begin bickering like typical siblings. Jin-Woo then informs her that he plans to create his own guild and name it Solo Play. Jinha bursts into laughter, mocking him. She sarcastically suggests, "How about Ajin Guild?" The name was actually her own name, Jinha, written backward. Surprisingly, Jin-Woo likes it. The scene now shifts to Cha Hae-in's house. She is blushing, overwhelmed by the fact that she finally confessed her feelings to Jin-Woo. She nervously wonders what Jin-Woo might think about her. She thinks to herself, "Jin-Woo saved my life, so what if I'm interested in him?" But then flustered, she shakes her head. "No, this isn't normal." Technically, Cha Hae-in's life was saved by Byung-goo's healing abilities. Suddenly, she remembers something, a specific moment when Byung-goo healed her. At that time, she had sensed his presence and he had left a strange message. "Tell Hunter Sung Jin-Woo to be careful with his powers." Recalling those words, Cha Hae-in quickly sits down, overwhelmed with concern.
Scene begins in the Night Guild, where an assistant informs the guildmaster Park Jong-soo that the association is not granting them permission to enter the newly opened gate. Jong-soo asks if it's an S-rank gate, but the assistant clarifies that it's actually a high-level A-rank gate, significantly larger than a normal gate. If it were an S-rank gate, they would have cancelled it by own. However, since it's an A-rank gate, rumors could spread that Night Guild, one of Korea's 5 major guilds, was unable to clear an A-rank gate. The general public often assumes all gates of the same rank have equal difficulty, unaware that gates can be either high-level or low-level within the same rank. While the A-rank hunters of Night Guild were just as strong as those from other guilds, their main issue was the lack of an S-rank hunter. Because of this, the association wasn't granting them permission to enter the gate, and they couldn't cooperate with other guilds. If other guilds found out that Night Guild had doubts about clearing the gate, they wouldn't want to work with them. Then, at that moment, a young woman enters the scene and suggests, "If we can't work with the entire guild, why not bring in someone who is as strong as an entire guild?" Park Jong-soo initially doubts that such a person exists, someone who can single-handedly clear a high-level gate. But then something clicks in his mind. He realizes that the woman is talking about S-rank hunter Sung Jin-Woo. Jong-soo becomes excited, knowing that working with Jin-Woo won't just make clearing the gate easier, but will also boost his guild's reputation. He decides to personally meet Jin-Woo. Meanwhile, on the other side, Jin-Woo and Jin-Hoo are discussing potential names for their new guild. Jin-Woo suggests, "How about Ajin Guild?" Jin-Hoo likes the name. His only wish was that the guild shouldn't be a solo play guild. Jin-Woo agrees, but mentions they still need to recruit one more member. When Jin-Hoo asks about Cha Hae-in, Jin-Woo says, "She is not good enough for our guild." Jin-Hoo is confused because in his opinion, Cha Hae-in would have been the best choice. He asks Jin-Woo what kind of member he's looking for, to which Jin-Woo replies, "Someone trustworthy who won't interfere in guild matters." Just then, there's a knock at the door. It's the Night Guildmaster introducing himself while showing Jin-Woo a gate. A massive A-rank gate, much bigger than a typical one. Jin-Woo initially mistakes it for an S-rank gate, but Jong-soo clarifies that it's actually a high-level A-rank gate, the largest ever seen in Busan City. Jin-Woo suddenly remembers that Ju-hee also lives in Busan City. Since Night Guild lacks an S-rank hunter, the association isn't allowing them into the gate. That's why Park Jong-soo wants Jin-Woo to join their squad. He's even willing to pay him. Normally, S-rank hunters receive 10% of the raid rewards, but Night Guild is offering 20%. Jin-Woo responds, "Don't look at me as an individual, but as a guild. We just formed Ajin Guild." He proposes a 50-50 split. Jin-Woo isn't in the mood for negotiations and accepts. However, in return, Jin-Woo will handle the dungeon boss alone. Since the gate had been open for nearly a week, the guild wants Jin-Woo to go with them immediately, but he says, "I'll be there on time." The assistant suddenly senses something shadowy, but the guildmaster dismisses it, thinking he's imagining things. Just then, Jin-Woo receives a call. It's his mother, who simply wanted to hear his voice. In reality, Jin-Woo didn't have any important work that night. He just had a family dinner. The next day, the scene shifts to Busan City. Near the gate, many Night Guild hunters are waiting. The time has come, but Jin-Woo hasn't arrived yet. The guildmaster starts to doubt whether Jin-Woo will show up on time. Meanwhile, Jin-Woo notices that the weather has turned bad and wonders, did Gina take an umbrella with her? Since it was already time, he activates Shadow Exchange. The scene then shifts to Gina's school, where a few students enter a locked room for some reason. As soon as they step inside, one of them sees a dungeon gate. The others get nervous, but one student reassures them, "Don't worry. Gates take a week to break open." However, this room had been locked since last semester, meaning no one knows when this gate actually formed. Suddenly, the gate begins to crack, and a magic beast's hand emerges, grabbing one of the students by the head. Within seconds, the student is killed instantly. Just then, 2 more orcs come out and take down all the students. For them, this place was like a castle full of prey. One of the orcs sends his companion to call for reinforcements while he himself moves forward. As soon as he reaches the hallway, he sees many students engaged in their usual activities. Without wasting any time, The orc attacks them. Then, we see a massive dungeon gate where Jin-Woo has also arrived. He is surprised to see that the Knights Guild had an unusually high number of A-rank hunters. Many hunters recognize him immediately and start asking about the Ant Beast and Black Shadows. They are excited that Jin-Woo will be leading them today. Jin-Woo himself doesn't even realize when he became a celebrity. Jin-Woo signals toward the Guildmaster. The Guildmaster explains that it will not be Sung Jin-Woo leading them, but himself. The hunters are confused. With Jin-Woo present, why would the Guildmaster lead? He clarifies that Jin-Woo's role is to protect them from behind. At that moment, a psycho-type hunter comments that they are not weaklings who need protection. Since it was time, they all started entering the dungeon gate. Meanwhile, at the Hunter Association Emergency Call Center, they receive a call from a girl. She informs them that their school is being attacked by monsters. She is hiding in the bathroom while all her friends have already been killed. The staff at the call center panics and asks her to describe the monsters. The terrified girl says they look human-like, but with green skin and hideous faces. Hearing this, she immediately realizes what they are dealing with. She shouts, "Get out of there now! They are orcs! And orcs can smell you!" Just then, an orc reaches her location, and the call is cut off. We see many students trying to escape from the school. About half of them manage to flee, but the rest are blocked by the orcs. In one of the classrooms, students had barricaded the door with chairs and benches. However, an orc slashes through the blockade and enters. A student tries to run from another exit, but two orcs catch and kill him instantly. Suddenly, the orcs sense magic energy coming from a girl. Jin-Ha and her friend were standing in the back. Jin-Ha's friend was an E-rank hunter, so she wanted to fight them. One of the orcs asks, "Is this the one you were talking about?" Another orc shakes his head and points at Jin-Ha. The orc raises his axe to strike Jin-Ha. But before he can do anything, a shadow emerges and punches him so hard that he crashes through the building. Instantly, 3 shadows form a protective formation in front of Jin-Ha. These were Jin-Woo's shadow and Tusk's personal high-level orc guards. Meanwhile, inside the dungeon, the teams encounter a twin-headed ogre. Everyone works together and successfully defeats it. This monster was known as the Gravekeeper, meaning the dungeon boss was going to be extremely dangerous since an army of undead was waiting for them, while the other hunters were getting worried. To Jin-Woo, this still felt like a low-level dungeon. Just then, he senses something and decides to leave. The Guildmaster protests, saying they won't be able to handle things without him. So Jin-Woo summons Beru. The hunters recognize Beru as the ant monster from Jeju Island, realizing immediately that Jin-Woo doesn't even need to explain how powerful he is. Beru bows and asks, "My king, what are your orders?" Jin-Woo replies, "Protect the humans and eliminate the monsters." Then he pulls out his dagger and rushes forward. He notices that all the monsters are instinctively clearing a path for him. It must be because of his power. Jin-Woo summons Kaisel and rides it out of the dungeon gate. People see Jin-Woo flying on Kaisel and start taking pictures. Back at the school, Jin-Ha asks the shadow guard, "Has my brother arrived?" But the shadow stops her because the path ahead was now open. Inside the dungeon, the Red Blade Tribe's chief, Guroktaru, declares that no one can stop them now. A subordinate runs in and reports that 3 high-level orc warriors are fighting alongside the humans. Furious, Guroktaru decides to take care of them himself. Meanwhile, inside the A-rank gate, the hunters are still anxious about the ant monsters. Suddenly, Beru approaches the Guildmaster and throws something at him. The terrified Guildmaster falls, but then he realizes that Beru had just eliminated a high-level beast in mere seconds. Seeing this, the hunters stop hesitating and follow the Shadow Army. At the school, all the orcs roar in rage as Guroktaru single-handedly fights the 3 high-level shadow orcs. One of the shadows moves forward, and Guroktaru attacks it, but another shadow easily blocks his strike. Enraged, Guroktaru slashes through both shadows. But the problem was, they kept regenerating. Guroktaru orders his orcs to focus on the shadows so he can capture Jin-Ha. He suspects that she is the one behind this mysterious power. The orcs swarm the shadows, while Guroktaru grabs Jin-Ha and lifts her into the air. Suddenly, he senses something terrifying approaching from the sky. Trembling, he drops Jin-Ha and exclaims, "Something terrifying is coming from above." Just then, Kaisel lands, and Jin-Woo steps forward. He looks at Jin-Ha and says, "You're safe now. I'm here." Guroktaru starts introducing himself, but Jin-Woo commands him with a chilling glare, "Shut up and wait." Jin-Woo hugs Jin-Ha and reassures everyone that they are now safe. He was extremely furious and called Igris, instructing him to take care of Jin-Ha. He then ordered his other soldiers to escort all the students safely downstairs. Meanwhile, we see that the orcs were trying to sneak away. Jin-Woo, still enraged, says, "Did I not tell you to stay in your place?" Guroktaru realizes that Jin-Woo is the one controlling the immortal beasts. He can't comprehend how Jin-Woo is speaking their beast language. Jin-Woo's rage reaches a high level, and Guroktaru orders his warriors to attack. Just as the orcs were about to attack Jin-Woo, he remains standing still. But before their attack can land, he grabs an orc and slams him to the ground. He then crushes 2 more orcs using Dominator's Touch. The rest of the orcs charge at him together, but in just a second, Jin-Woo appears behind them because he had already taken care of all of them with his bare hands. With a cold attitude, Jin-Woo walks toward Guruktaru. As Guruktaru begins to speak, Jin-Woo grabs his face and lifts him up. Thinking about the destruction these creatures have caused, Jin-Woo asks, "Why do you treat humans so cruelly?" He said. A voice in his head commands him to kill humans just like other beasts. Jin-Woo then asks, "Then what command do you hear about me?" Guruktaru, terrified, only begs for his life. Without hesitation, Jin-Woo pulls out his dagger and puts him into a painful sleep. On the other side, inside the dungeon, a female hunter had been injured. Just then, Baru appears from behind and heals her. His healing ability is even better than hers. Soon, the group reaches the boss room where they find Archlich standing with countless Death Knights by his side. The guildmaster recalls that Archlich is infamous for annihilating China's legendary Gold Dragon Guild. He doesn't believe they can win this fight. The path behind them is blocked by death beasts, making retreat impossible. One of the hunters uses Holy Wall to hold back the monsters, but it won't last long. Meanwhile, Baru, with an intimidating aura, walks toward Archlich. The Lich recognizes Baru as a soldier of the Monarch's Shadow Army and wonders, why is the Monarch's army attacking us? Even the high-level Death Knights beside him seem concerned. Baru responds, "Because the Monarch has chosen us, not you." Archlich then says that I must inform the other monarchs about this. But before he can do anything, Baru dashes forward, plunges his hand into the Lich's chest, and rips out his core. The moment Baru crushes it, all Death Knights and monsters vanish along with Archlich. Baru then lets out a deafening roar. The Guildmaster, in shock, thinks, "I knew he was strong, but I didn't expect him to be this powerful." They now realize that Jin-Woo doesn't even need to enter dungeons himself. He can simply send his summons, and the dungeon will be cleared. The guild then decides to form an alliance with Jin-Woo's guild. Even though Jin-Woo doesn't need their help in battle, he must meet the minimum hunter requirement to enter a gate, so he will need this alliance. Meanwhile, outside the school, the bodies of the fallen students are being recovered. Many students lost their lives, but 213 managed to escape beforehand. Unfortunately, only 10 were rescued. Jin-Woo sits in a car with Chairman Go Gun-hee, who then shows him a graph, revealing that the number of gates appearing worldwide has drastically increased. Not only that, but the number of awakened beings is also rising. Jin-Woo then asks, "What were you planning to tell me today?" The chairman explains that nations across the world, including Japan, the United States, China, Russia, France, Germany, and even the Middle East, want to meet him. He further says, "We have done our best to maintain your privacy, but now it is up to you. Will you choose another country, or will you stay in Korea? If you leave Korea, our country won't be able to survive the dangers ahead." After dropping Jin-Woo off, the chairman adds, "I will give you whatever power I can. Just don't leave Korea." Jin-Woo replies, "If that's the case, then I want you to allow me to enter high-level gates alone." Hearing this, the chairman is shocked because Jin-Woo is asking to remove the minimum hunter requirement for gate entry. This law was created to ensure the safety of hunters. However, the chairman says this will be difficult, but I will talk to the higher-ups.
After dropping Jin-Woo off at the hospital, Chairman Go made his way straight to the National Assembly. The issue was urgent and needed immediate discussion. Standing before the assembly, he proposed that some of Jin-Woo's shadow soldiers be officially recognized as strike force members. Instantly, a member of the assembly pushed back, dismissing the suggestion as ridiculous. The Hunters Association exists to serve all hunters equally. Bending the rules just for Hunter Sung Jin-Woo is unfair. Chairman Go didn't deny it. Calmly, he acknowledged, yes, this is preferential treatment. But then he posed a critical question to everyone in the room. If you had to choose, would you send a squad of average hunters into a high-level gate or allow Jin-Woo to handle it alone? The chamber fell silent. The answer was obvious, but no one said it out loud. He continued reminding them, other nations are lining up to welcome Jin-Woo with open arms. If we don't adapt, he might very well choose to leave. We cannot afford to make the same mistake twice. He brought up the case of Hunter Hwang Dong-soo, who had previously defected to the United States, causing a huge loss for Korea. Meanwhile, on the other side, Yoo Soo-yoon was completely absorbed in her life as an actress. Right after finishing a shoot, she noticed her phone vibrating. Her cousin Jin-ho was calling. He asked her to join the Ajin Guild, assuring her that she wouldn't actually have to do any real work. They just needed one final member to complete the founding list for official registration. Soo-yoon raised an eyebrow, suspicious. She playfully accused him of falling for a scam. Jin-ho laughed, saying she'd be stunned once she found out who the so-called shady guy actually was. Curious, Soo-yoon made her way to the Ajin Guild office. When she arrived, Jin-ho introduced her to Jin-Woo, explaining that she was his cousin and also an officially ranked A-tier hunter. The moment she recognized who stood before her, it hit her. This was the Sung Jin-Woo. Jin-Ho, ever the joker, reminded her that she was still the celebrity of the family. But So-Yun was clearly more thrilled about meeting Jin-Woo than being reminded of her own fame. Watching the way they interacted, Jin-Woo began to reflect on their family ties. Jin-Ho, a D-rank hunter, So-Yun, A-rank. He wondered if genetics played a part in how people awakened their powers. It reminded him of cases where siblings developed abilities, and he thought back to his own father, who had once been a hunter too. Bringing his attention back to the moment, Jin-Woo asked So-Yun if Jin-Ho had filled her in. She nodded, confirming she knew her role was to complete the founding roster. Jin-Woo warned her that becoming a public part of their guild might bring media attention and asked if she was ready for that. Unfazed, So-Yun shrugged it off, saying it was still better than being involved with someone named Jin-Sung. Puzzled, Jin-Woo asked who that was. Jin-Ho muttered that Jin-Sung was his older brother, famous for his nasty personality. As their conversation died down, So-Yun stepped closer to Jin-Woo and smiled. She asked if he'd mind taking a selfie with her. He agreed, and soon after, she posted the picture online. The photo exploded across social media, quickly going viral. When Cha-Hayan saw it, an unfamiliar feeling crept over her. Her chest tightened, her body trembled, and for the first time, she felt a deep insecurity she couldn't shake. Shortly after, the National Assembly officially granted Jin-Woo's request to recognize his summoned beings as Strike Squad members. Soon, he and Jin-Ho arrived at the site of an A-rank gate, the first raid for the newly registered Ajin Guild. Jin-Ho stared in awe at the enormous structure looming before them. Calm and focused, Jin-Woo took the lead, but they weren't alone. Woo Jin-chul, chief inspector of the Hunter Association surveillance team, had arrived to personally examine Jin-Woo's summoned creatures. He watched the shadow soldiers closely, noting that each one seemed at least B-rank, with several possibly matching A-rank power. Jin-Woo and his army easily passed all security checks for the gate, leaving no room for doubt. Jin-chul realized then that those accusing Jin-Woo of receiving special treatment clearly had no understanding of the raw power he held. As the team prepared to enter, Jin-chul suddenly took off his coat, surprising both Jin-Woo and Jin-Ho. Underneath was a full set of armor. He explained that Chairman Go had personally assigned him to observe the raid for safety reasons and asked if he could tag along as a temporary inspector. Jin-Woo raised a brow and asked if he was truly ready. At the time, Jin-chul didn't fully grasp what Jin-Woo meant, but he would soon. Inside the gate, a gruesome scene awaited. One of the A-rank monsters, a Naga, was being mercilessly torn apart by Jin-Woo's shadows. On the other side, the shadow ants devoured their enemies alive in a terrifying frenzy. Iron and tanks smashed through the monsters like wrecking balls, while the fearsome Baru cleanly beheaded a Naga in a single move. Jin-chul could feel sweat trickling down his face as he watched the brutal efficiency. Even the most skilled hunters would have found these foes dangerous, but Jin-Woo's army overwhelmed them with ease. One figure stood out more than the rest: Igris. With the demon monarch's sword in hand, he moved at lightning speed, each swing of his blade sending out powerful electric strikes. Igris wiped out Nagas in mere seconds, and Jin-chul found himself wondering if even top-tier hunters could compete with such strength. While his army battled, Jin-Woo had another group mining mana crystals from the surroundings, making sure every bit of the dungeon was utilized. It was in that moment Jin-chul finally understood why Chairman Go had wanted him to witness this personally. Jin-Woo wasn't just a hunter, he was a one-man raid team. He could clear the dungeon, collect corpses, and extract crystals all by himself. Then, the dungeon boss appeared, a towering Naga armed with twin tridents. Its aura sent chills down Jin-chul's spine, but Jin-Woo stood unshaken. He told his mining team to continue, then summoned his remaining shadows back to him. Confused, Jin-chul asked why he was pulling them away. They could clearly handle the boss easily. Jin-Woo simply gave a sly smile and pulled out his demon monarch's dagger. He calmly explained that leaning too heavily on his shadow army might weaken his personal skills. Then, without a moment's pause, he dashed forward. The Naga boss let out a thunderous roar, its trident slicing through the air with overwhelming strength, but Jin-Woo had already vanished from its sight. In the blink of an eye, he reappeared right in front of the monster, weaving between its attacks with fluid precision. Before the beast could react, Jin-Woo's blade slashed cleanly through its neck. The boss's head toppled, and its massive body collapsed with a resounding crash. Jin-Chul could only stare in disbelief as the monster's lifeless form hit the floor. A system alert popped up in front of Jin-Woo. He had reached level 101. Even more shocking, every one of his job-specific abilities had improved. The cooldown for shadow exchange had been reduced by a full hour. Jin-Woo's eyes lit up. If this trend continued, he realized he might soon be able to teleport at will, freeing him from the constant worry over his mother and sister's safety. Jin-Chul remained still, his mind struggling to process what he had seen. Jin-Woo had cut straight through the Naga's thick, scaly hide with nothing but dual daggers, a feat that should have been impossible. But then, something else drew Jin-Chul's attention. Raising one hand over the fallen boss, Jin-Woo softly spoke a single word: "Arise." The system confirmed the summoning was successful. A new shadow soldier emerged, starting at level 30. Jin-Woo suspected, much like Tusk, it might be able to grow larger using magic. The system then prompted him to assign it a name. After thinking for a moment, Jin-Woo chose to call it Jima. Jin-Chul, still watching in awe, couldn't hide his amazement. The way Jin-Woo could turn a high-level monster into one of his own was unlike anything he had ever seen. Yet, despite his wonder, he reminded Jin-Woo that it was time to head out. Jin-Woo, however, kept his gaze fixed on the massive corpse before him, considering his next move. Outside the gate, a crowd of reporters had gathered, eager to capture anything unusual. Suddenly, from within the gate, a towering silhouette stepped out, hoisting the Naga boss's body over its shoulder. It was Tusk. Gasps erupted from the onlookers. Cameras flashed in every direction. For a brief moment, panic rippled through the crowd. But as they recognized the creature as one of Jin-Woo's summons, fear shifted into awe and excitement. Tusk, clearly uncomfortable under the attention, responded with a sheepish grin. Jin-Woo and Jin-Chul remained silent, realizing their first dungeon raid had drawn far more attention than expected. Meanwhile, Chief Woo Jin-Chul, still visibly shaken, arrived at the Hunter Association to deliver a full report to President Go Gun-hee. His expression was pale and tense, beads of sweat on his forehead. As he recounted the events of the dungeon, he confessed, this wasn't a typical raid. It had been a massacre. President Go listened carefully, then exhaled deeply. Aware of the toll the experience had taken on Jin-Chul, he kindly advised him to rest. Left alone in his office, Go walked over to the window, lost in thought. Sung Jin-Woo hadn't just cleared an A-rank dungeon. He had harvested mana crystals, carried out monster corpses, and done it all by himself. To the chairman, Jin-Woo now resembled an entire guild compressed into one man, an unstoppable force. A knowing smile formed on Go's face. His intuition had been right all along. A great shift in global power was approaching, and the tremors had already begun. Far away in Tokyo, life suddenly paused. Pedestrians froze. Conversations died out. Everyone's eyes lifted toward the sky as an enormous shadow spread across the city. In the heart of Shinjuku, a colossal portal opened, its size rivaling that of a skyscraper. An S-rank gate had just appeared. The scene shifts to a hallway where a group of people is engaged in a tense discussion. They're analyzing the surge in high-level gate activity across the country and the alarming emergence of the Red Gate. Given Japan's current crisis, all major guilds have been summoned for a crucial meeting. The loss of key manpower, especially 7 S-rank hunters including Goto Ryuji during the Jeju Island raid, has left a massive gap in strength. As the conversation continues, the remaining S-rank members of the Draw Sword Guild are seen approaching the conference room. One observer remarks that Matsumoto, the president of the association, is hanging by a thread ever since Goto's death. He adds bitterly that the association once held a monopoly over the nation's S-rank hunters, so it's somewhat satisfying to watch them squirm now. With what little strength they have left, it's only a matter of time before they lose their status as Japan's top guild. Overhearing this, Sugimoto halts in his tracks and shoots a cold glare at the men, silencing them instantly. After they retreat, Minoru turns to Sugimoto, noting how bold these people have become ever since Goto passed. They never dared to speak like this before. Kane steps in, mentioning a rumor. The Black Hole Guild and the Snowy Mountains Guild are planning a merger. Together they'd have 4 S-rank hunters, just like Draw Sword. Unfazed, Sugimoto replies that there's no need to panic. Even if they match numbers, power and strength aren't equal. He mocks the idea of those guilds ever surpassing them, calling it laughable. The scene then cuts to a heated confrontation inside the meeting room. A furious man demands answers, asking why the Hunters Association hasn't responded to the S-rank gate that emerged in Tokyo. He presses them to reveal whether a plan is in place. What will happen if a dungeon break occurs? Matsumoto Shigeo, chairman of the Japanese Hunters Association, responds grimly, S-rank hunters alone aren't enough to take down an S-rank dungeon. Their only option might be to call on national-level hunters. Another official speaks up, saying it should be obvious, after what they all witnessed during the Jeju Island raid. That raid cost them most of their top hunters, including someone considered close to national rank strength. Trying to clear another S-rank gate without proper support could lead to the same devastating outcome. A suggestion is thrown in. Why not contact Thomas Andre for help? But it's quickly shot down. They simply don't have the funds. On top of that, the surge in gate appearances has forced every country to hire mercenary hunters for their own problems. Foreign assistance isn't an option. Amidst the rising tension, Sugimoto suggests a different name. Yuri Orlov, also known as the barrier expert. He might be willing to step in, if the price is right. We then transition to Jin-Woo stepping out of his car, heading towards his guild office. As he walks, he reflects, level 101 already. At 100, I received the key to the Cartnon Temple. Now, all my class-specific skills have been enhanced. I wonder what surprises level 102 holds. As he approaches the building, he spots someone, Hunter Cha. Upon seeing him, she quickly tries to walk away, but Jin-Woo instantly appears beside her. Why are you running? If you didn't want to see me, why'd you even come to my office? Flustered, Cha points towards the parking lot and says her car is still there. Jin-Woo realizes it's because they used Shadow Exchange last time. She couldn't retrieve her car. Cha gathers her courage and asks if he has a moment to talk. Jin-Woo replies, asking what she wanted to discuss. Internally, she battles with herself, remembering the picture of him and Soo-hyun, wondering if they're dating, especially when she herself is an S-rank. But pushing those feelings aside, she tells him, Hunter Min asked me to deliver a message. It's about his powers. That catches Jin-Woo's attention. He's been searching for answers related to that. He cuts in, suggesting they move the conversation somewhere private. The scene cuts to his office, where Cha questions why it's empty. Jin-Woo explains that the vice master stayed back at a dungeon site. Hearing that, she's excited to be alone with him. Jin-Woo then asks, how did Hunter Byung-gu leave a message for me through you? She begins recounting her vision from when she was unconscious on Jeju Island. She describes floating in darkness until a hand pulled her out. It was Hunter Byung-gu. He warned that Jin-Woo's powers are dangerously overwhelming and must be understood. He mentioned a true army behind Jin-Woo but disappeared before revealing more. Later, we see Jin-Woo deep in thought inside a dungeon, processing what Cha has said. Whether it's true or not, I need to uncover the source of my strength. That's more important than just getting stronger. Beside him, Jin-Ho wonders aloud why they don't just let the summons handle everything. Jin-Woo explains, the further I am from them, the less experience I gain. Plus, I can't trust what they do without supervision. Jin-Ho then checks in on Jin-Woo's sister, asking how she's doing post-dungeon break. Jin-Woo replies that she's recovering well, and to ensure her safety, he's left his most reliable shadows with her. Using shadow sense, Jin-Woo checks through his soldier's eyes. Through Baru, he sees Jin-Ha asleep on the couch while Baru watches television. Jin-Woo thinks, of course, I should have guessed that's the kind of show he likes. He continues checking in. His mother is out grocery shopping. Beck and Choi are arguing as usual. Then he checks on Hunter Cha and accidentally sees her in the shower. Embarrassed, he quickly cuts the connection. Lost in thought, Jin-Ho asks if he's dozed off. But Jin-Woo stays quiet, thinking, I should probably apologize. Maybe buy her lunch. Meanwhile, Jin-Ho brings up the S-rank gate that's appeared in Shinjuku, Japan. Only 3 days remain before a possible dungeon break. Japan is scrambling to gather hunters from every corner. He asks if they've contacted Jin-Woo. Jin-Woo confirms, I did, but there's something more urgent I need to deal with. Meanwhile, in Japan, Yuri Orlov, a renowned Russian national-level hunter, was introducing himself to Sugimoto, proudly declaring that he was the best support-type hunter in the world. He mentioned reading the report from the Short Sword Guild and sarcastically praised their decision to evacuate the civilians. Then, with a mocking tone, he asked whether it was true that Japan could only dispatch 6 S-rank hunters due to their current lack of manpower. Sugimoto admitted it was true. He explained that since a number of A-rank gates had also emerged throughout Japan, they needed to keep at least 1 S-rank hunter stationed at each guild. Even their own guild would leave one behind, sending only 3 S-rank members to support the current crisis. Upon hearing that, Yuri scoffed and called it disgraceful, questioning how they planned to protect their country that way. Then came his demand: $3.6 billion annually, or $10 million per day. In exchange, he claimed he would keep the gate sealed for as long as they wanted. Sugimoto was stunned at the outrageous sum and asked if Yuri was seriously charging that much. Yuri coolly responded, "You're getting a bargain. Compared to the $36 trillion Thomas Andre asked for, I'm a steal." Minoru, baffled, turned to Kane and asked her, since she knew Russian, what the man had just said. Kane replied, "Not exactly sure, but it definitely wasn't anything good." Yuri then taunted them, questioning whether they'd rather rescue their homeland or save money, and called Sugimoto the only one with any potential, dismissing the others as irrelevant. Minoru snapped at the insult, but Kane calmly noted that while she didn't catch every word, Yuri's message was loud and clear. Suddenly, they were trapped within a barrier. Yuri smirked as he declared that no one could move a step without his permission. Struggling to break free, Minoru wondered how someone could suppress even S-rank hunters so easily. Still grinning, Yuri offered to stop the S-rank gate entirely and even suggested letting them go for free this time, as if he were doing them a favor. Realizing Yuri wasn't bluffing, Sugimoto finally acknowledged his power, but said he needed to make a call before deciding anything. Back in Korea, Jin-Woo was preparing to enter the mysterious double dungeon. As he got ready, his mother reassured him that she didn't need to worry, trusting her son. Jin-Woo told her not to stress. It was just a simple appointment. When the timer reached 0, the key finally revealed the dungeon's location: Jin-Ho's school. When Jin-Woo arrived, members of the Hunters Association were already there, keeping an eye on the gate. He approached them and asked how long the gate had been open. They told him it had been about 3 days and that a hunter raid team had entered it 2 hours earlier. Jin-Woo warned them that the team was in grave danger and insisted they call them back. Otherwise, they would be wiped out. Determined, Jin-Woo entered the gate, vowing to return with the entire assault squad. Inside the double dungeon, the squad had reached the boss chamber, but the door wouldn't budge. Not even magic worked on it. As they debated what to do, a voice from behind said, "It's a trap." Startled, they turned and saw Jin-Woo. They demanded to know who he was and what he was doing there. Jin-Woo calmly introduced himself as a survivor of a previous double dungeon. One of the team members recognized him and asked if he was Korea's newest S-rank hunter. Jin-Woo nodded and urged them to retreat. He'd handle things from there. Approaching the door, he noticed something unusual. A system prompt read, "The gate to the Kartanon temple is sealed. Please insert the key." He pulled out the key and realized this dungeon was different from the ones before. As the door opened, the assault squad was in disbelief, wondering how he managed to open something they couldn't even dent. One of them told Jin-Woo that the dungeon had been purchased by the Dragon Guild, and therefore he had no authority to interfere. Others joined in, saying similar things. Jin-Woo, unbothered, said he wouldn't stop them. "Anyone who wishes to enter may go ahead." A hunter stepped forward, attempting to enter, but a warning popped up. "Access denied. Unauthorized entry." Suddenly a statue came alive, swinging its massive sword at the intruder. Jin-Woo moved quickly, grabbing the hunter and pulling him out just in time. He warned them that every creature in the dungeon was like that, and asked again, did they still want to go in? He instructed them to report the situation to the association, informing them that a double dungeon had been discovered. Then, with no more hesitation, he walked into the boss chamber. The door shut tight behind him, locking everyone else out. Inside, the lanterns lining the walls flickered to life one by one. The chamber was filled with stone statues, one of which had wings and held a stone tablet with inscriptions. At the center sat a mysterious figure. Jin-Woo stepped closer, whispering, "So it all started here. I've returned, but it's different this time." He could feel it. Something was off. Observing the room, he noted that the figures weren't monsters, nor were they alive. They were like puppets controlled by something unseen. Only one source of magic here, he thought, approaching the winged statue. "Won't you say anything? Aren't you going to respond?" Suddenly the statue stirred, breaking the silence. "At last, you've arrived." Back in Japan, Yuri Orlov had just landed and was instantly surrounded by reporters. They bombarded him with questions about his strategy for sealing the S-rank gate. Yuri confidently explained that he would use the same method he always had. By drawing a giant magic circle around the gate and feeding it with his mana, nothing inside would be able to escape. When asked if he could really block an S-rank gate alone, Yuri admitted it wasn't possible for him to sustain it by himself. However, the magic circle would draw in ambient mana, and by placing large quantities of mana crystals throughout Tokyo, the barrier would absorb energy from them. Over time, it would grow stronger, becoming a solid wall that couldn't be breached. He turned toward the cameras and boldly declared, "I'll protect your lives. Just don't forget who saved you." Chairman Go Gun-hee, watching the broadcast, commented, "I don't know if he can hold back an S-rank gate, but I do know what will happen if he fails." He then asked Woo Jin-chul what Hunter Sung Jin-Woo had been up to. Woo told him that Jin-Woo was busy clearing dungeons around Seoul, and that the Ajin Guild had requested access to all open gates marked as Owens. Although some of these gates were in regions managed by the White Tiger, Hunters, and Fiend Guilds, they hadn't objected yet. The chairman asked if the Ajin Guild mentioned anything else. Wu added that they requested to handle nearby gates for the next week for undisclosed reasons. The chairman approved the request. Just then, Jin-chul received a call. He stepped away and answered it. On the line, someone reported that another gate had appeared, this time at the same school recently attacked by orcs. While the gate didn't seem threatening at first, they had just confirmed it was a double dungeon. And more importantly, that Hunter Sung Jin-Woo had entered it. Jin-Woo stood before the wing statue, the same one that had just stirred to life. With a powerful motion, the creature shattered the stone platform beneath it and said, "So you've finally come this far." Jin-Woo, unshaken, asked if breaking the slab was truly necessary and whether it was this creature that summoned him here. The entity confirmed with a nod. Jin-Woo then questioned, "Are you a monster?" Instead of answering directly, the being responded cryptically, "You're asking the wrong questions. Rather than trying to understand who I am, you should be asking, who are you?" He then declared that the final trial was about to begin. "If you're still on your feet by the end of this test, I'll reveal everything to you. That will be your reward." As the stone statues around the room began to stir and close in on him, Jin-Woo prepared to summon his shadow soldiers, but with a snap of its fingers the creature stopped him. That won't work here. This is a trial meant for you alone. No cheating. Your servants won't be part of this. I want to evaluate you, not the strength of your shadows. Suddenly a system message appeared in front of Jin-Woo. Access to potions, shop items, and recovery rewards from quests or level-ups has been temporarily disabled. You may not exit this space until the trial concludes. Reading it, Jin-Woo smirked slightly and muttered, "So this is how it's going to be, huh? I didn't expect every card in my hand to be rendered useless." As one of the statues lunged at him, Jin-Woo thought quickly, "I can still use my inventory." Without hesitation, he caught the incoming blade with his bare hands and, using brute strength, snapped it in half. He hurled the broken shard straight at the creature's face, embedding it deep. But the beast wasn't finished. It began pulling the piece out. Before it could succeed, Jin-Woo charged forward and drove the shard deeper with a fierce kick to its face. The rest of the statues immediately attacked, but Jin-Woo moved too fast for them. Dodging every strike, he leapt into the air and drove his blade into the head of one statue, eliminating it. Another statue loosed an arrow from afar, but Jin-Woo sliced it in mid-air with his daggers and sent one half flying back at the attacker, smashing its head. As he dismantled the stone warriors one by one, he thought to himself, "I've waited for this. No, I've lived for this moment." Watching the fierce battle unfold, the entity seemed genuinely impressed. "For someone with a human body, you've achieved remarkable power." It floated above the ground, silently observing Jin-Woo's every move. With each exchange, Jin-Woo realized something. Earlier, these statues looked like they were teleporting, but now I can follow their movements. Each one is powerful, but I can beat them. The creature finally spoke again. "Your growth is truly impressive, but this trial is far from over." Suddenly, the ground trembled. Jin-Woo turned to find a colossal statue approaching. It dwarfed the others, so tall and overwhelming that even the monster he was fighting seemed small beside it. The creature watching Jin-Woo gave a faint smirk. Meanwhile, back in the chairman's office, Chairman Go-Gun-hee was in a meeting. One of the men handed over a document. "This contract surrenders all claims to the essence stones on Jeju Island." It was Chairman Matsumoto Shigeo of Japanese Hunters Association. "In return, we'd like to request a meeting with Hunter Song Jin-Woo." Chairman Go-Gun-hee replied flatly, "Jin-Woo isn't a part of the Korean Hunters Association." Matsumoto acknowledged this. "Yes, we know. That's why we're asking for your help to arrange a meeting. We haven't been able to reach him ourselves." Go-Gun-hee thought for a moment. They're giving up such a massive fortune just for a chance to talk to Jin-Woo? He suspected it had something to do with the recent S-rank gate that appeared in Tokyo, especially now that Goto Ryuji was gone. After weighing the situation, he set the papers down. "Let's speak without the interpreters," he said in fluent Japanese. Surprised, Matsumoto asked, "You speak Japanese?" "My father used to run a small business there when I was a kid," Go-Gun-hee replied. Once the translators left, the chairman's tone shifted. "If this is another of your tricks, I'd advise you to stop." Matsumoto feigned innocence. "What do you mean?" Go-Gun-hee's eyes narrowed. "Word is the Blade Guild has cut ties with you." Startled, Matsumoto asked how he knew. It wasn't hard to figure out. The Blade Guild refused funding from your association and only took government aid. That guild used to be your core support. Without them, your control is slipping. You were once able to rally your nation's S-rank hunters because of Goto, but he's gone now. He leaned in. "If that S-rank gate isn't handled, you'll bear the full weight of failure, Chairman Matsumoto." Go-Gun-hee pulled out a device and placed it on the table. "This was recovered from Goto's team, a recording device synced to your receiver." Furious, he asked, "Did you really think I wouldn't uncover the truth?" He slammed his hand down on the device, shattering it and the table beneath it. "I'm not heartless enough to let an entire nation suffer for one man's schemes. But make no mistake, the only reason Japan has a chance to recover is because of Hunt Jin-Woo." Jin-Woo was relentlessly tearing through the stone creatures inside the double dungeon. Despite eliminating dozens, they just kept coming, wave after wave. Amidst the intense battle, his sharp eyes caught something. Far at the back of the room, a towering statue's eyes began to glow ominously. Jin-Woo instantly realized it was charging up a devastating attack. It's too late to dodge, he thought. Without hesitation, he activated Commander's Touch and flung some of the nearby creatures into the air, positioning them in front of him like a makeshift shield. The giant statue unleashed its energy blast, vaporizing the soldiers he'd used as cover. The beam tore through them effortlessly, but Jin-Woo narrowly evaded the attack at the last possible second. Seeing the destruction it caused, Jin-Woo concluded, even at my current level, if I take a direct hit, I won't survive. Determined to eliminate the source of the threat, he dashed toward the colossal enemy. The massive statue raised its foot to stomp him out of existence, crashing it down and forming a deep crater. Believing it had crushed him, the creature let out a sinister smirk, only to find Jin-Woo still speeding toward it unharmed. The statue started charging another blast. Jin-Woo, gauging the situation, decided to combine his agility with Dominator's authority, aiming to hit the creature's blind spot. He launched himself toward its shoulder, just barely avoiding the next attack. As he got closer, he felt an overwhelming gravitational force, but even so, the skill was effective, even though he'd used only a small portion of his mana. The upgraded ability had clearly paid off. Spotting an opening, he used his skill mutilation and slashed straight at the creature's face. But to his shock, even the Demon King's daggers could barely leave a mark. Realizing how tough the enemy was, Jin-Woo activated brute force and targeted a weak spot. Gripping the creature tightly, he smashed its face with raw strength. The attack clearly rattled it. Observing the situation from a distance, the first entity remarked, I never expected him to use that kind of strike against my masterpiece. Jin-Woo didn't let up. He unleashed a flurry of punches, pouring all his might into one final blow. Let me show you what level 103 really looks like. Slamming his fist into the statue so hard it crashed to the ground. Without pausing, he leapt into the middle of the remaining enemies. As they charged, he activated Dominator's authority again, slamming them all into the floor. With the room finally cleared, Jin-Woo walked toward the hovering being that had been observing him all along. The creature clapped slowly, acknowledging his efforts. That was truly remarkable. Jin-Woo reminded it of the promise to answer all of his questions. The being smirked, replying, The trial isn't finished yet. I'm still standing, am I not? Suddenly Jin-Woo received an urgent quest. If you fail to defeat the enemy within 10 minutes, your heart will cease to beat. I am your final challenge, the being said. Once more, Jin-Woo demanded to know who it really was. This time the answer came with a smile. I'm the architect behind the system. Meanwhile, outside the gate, Hunter Wu arrived with a team of 7 elite hunters. As he approached, he sensed something terrifying. This mana, it's overwhelming. Is anyone else picking this up? He stood frozen in front of the gate, a chill running down his spine. Where's this terrifying aura coming from? He asked if any other top-tier guilds were ready to assist. The team confirmed the Hunter Guild was on standby, and both Hunter Cha and Hunter Choi had agreed to participate. Deep inside, he worried. Just what is Jin-Woo dealing with in there? Back in the dungeon, the final confrontation began. The architect transformed its wings into arms and shot toward Jin-Woo at an incredible speed. One punch sent Jin-Woo flying across the room, slamming into a wall. Before he could regain his footing, the architect struck again, but this time, Jin-Woo dodged. He quickly created distance, but the attacks didn't stop. The architect unleashed a flurry of blows, each one powerful and precise. Jin-Woo blocked them all. You've exceeded my expectations, the architect said, clearly impressed, before landing a direct punch to Jin-Woo's face. Thinking the fight was over, the being smiled, until Jin-Woo, undeterred, countered with a powerful punch of his own, sending the architect skidding backward. Regaining composure, the architect laughed. Who would have thought I'd enjoy fighting a human this much? Never did I imagine a human could match me. Jin-Woo eyed his opponent. You summoned me the moment I hit level 101. You must have thought I wouldn't stand a chance. He pressed on. asking the questions that weighed on his mind. Why did you create the system? Why was I chosen as its player? And what's really happening to this world? The architect launched toward him again, interrupting his thoughts. Are you afraid I'll die before I give you your answers? And used Dominator's authority. But the architect saw through his plan. Planning to fight from a distance? It's useless. Unleashing a massive explosion that rocked the room. Jin-Woo realized with alarm, it can use the same skills as me. Long-range attacks won't work either. The architect drew in every weapon from the room, floating them around like a deadly storm. The answers you seek were set in stone from the beginning, since the day I built the system. Jin-Woo asked, how did you create all this? How were you able to give me such power? The creature replied coldly, I never chose you. In fact, I opposed the idea. I am merely the architect and overseer of the player breeding system. Jin-Woo glanced at the timer. Only 6 minutes remained before his heart would stop beating. The clock was ticking fast. There's no more time to think. I have to go all in. Just then his eyes caught the architect hovering in the air, soaring toward him at high speed. A strike came immediately, but Jin-Woo had already vanished. Without missing a beat, the architect charged again, launching a rapid series of blows. But Jin-Woo, much to his own surprise, was dodging every hit with fluid ease. He wondered mid-battle, what's happening to me? My reflexes, my senses, everything feels sharper. A surge of confidence bloomed within him, and in the midst of that blitz, Jin-Woo countered with a clean strike to the architect's face. Staggered, the architect reeled back. I'm going all out, and he's still able to keep up? No, he's getting faster. In a blur, Jin-Woo closed the distance and sliced off one of the architect's arms. Shocked, the being paused, feeling something it hadn't expected, pain. This body may be artificial, but he's actually hurting me. Staring at Jin-Woo, something clicked. The architect narrowed his eyes. Is that why he was chosen? Fury boiled over. You're just a lowly human. How dare you? With that, he raised his arms, and one by one, the fallen stone soldiers began to rise again. Jin-Woo checked the timer. 3 minutes left. No hesitation. He sprinted forward and unleashed Dominator's authority. A wave of pressure slammed into the summoned minions, shattering them to pieces. A massive stone warrior took a swing at him, but Jin-Woo weaved out of its path with precision. He darted straight toward the architect and began striking with blistering speed. Another arm severed, but not without cost. He was hit and sent flying backward, crashing into something solid. As he turned around, a familiar face greeted him, an enemy from his past, the soldier who had once pushed Jin-Woo to the brink of death. A surge of rage took over. With one clean elbow strike, Jin-Woo split the soldier's skull in two, putting an end to that nightmare once and for all. Wasting no time, he locked onto the architect again. In a relentless assault, he severed the remaining arms. 2 minutes left. He channeled every last bit of strength into a final blow. A massive explosion erupted, consuming them both. Smoke and dust filled the chamber. When the haze cleared, Jin-Woo stood atop the defeated architect. Breathing heavily, he heard the architect's voice, now calm. The trial is over. Jin-Woo didn't speak. He just waited. The answers you want, they're already inside you. A system prompt appeared before Jin-Woo. Retrieving stored memory data, the architect added. The choice is yours. Jin-Woo paused for a moment. Then, with resolve, he chose to accept. A blinding light enveloped him, and in the next moment, he found himself in a completely different realm, his spirit floating in a strange dimension. Below him stretched an army. His eyes widened in horror. Countless monsters spread across the landscape. They all stared upwards, as if expecting something. Confused, Jin-Woo turned his gaze skyward, and his breath caught. The sky was a swirling purple void filled with enormous gates. This place. This isn't Earth. His eyes scanned the monstrous horde. Ice elves, high orcs, goblins, giants, and countless other species stood ready for war. If they poured through the gates together, humanity wouldn't stand a chance. Suddenly, the sky began to fracture like glass. From the cracks descended beings clad in radiant silver armor with angelic wings, the Silver Soldiers. Without warning, chaos erupted, blades clashed, screams echoed, blood soaked the ground. The Silver Army tore through the monsters with overwhelming might. Just as the monsters seemed on the brink of annihilation, something shifted. The soldiers froze, one by one, as an unfamiliar presence entered the battlefield. Jin-Woo stared, stunned. A dark figure appeared, exuding power he recognized immediately. That's a monarch's domain. Then, right before his eyes, the figure raised a hand and began using shadow extraction. Dead monsters began to rise again, but this time as shadow warriors. Jin-Woo's eyes widened. That's the Shadow Monarch. The battlefield transformed. The lifeless monsters didn't stay dead. They came back, fueled by darkness, stronger than before. Watching the endless sea of undead, Jin-Woo was struck with awe. He can summon that many? My shadow army is nothing compared to his. All around, monsters revived and charged back into the fight. The battlefield was once again consumed in war, black shadows clashing with silver blades. Explosions tore through the air. The ground shook beneath their feet. The Shadow Monarch, unstoppable, sliced through the Silver Soldiers with terrifying ease. Everywhere he goes, nothing survives, Jin-Woo thought, watching. He's using Dominator's authority, just like me. The Shadow Soldiers fell and rose again, over and over, never truly dying. A brutal, unending assault. Victory seemed certain for the Shadows, until a new threat appeared. Back in the double dungeon, hunters Jin Chul, Cha Hei-in, Choi Jong-in, and others had arrived. Choi frowned. This energy, are we sure Jin-Woo's in there? Cha, sensing something strange, replied, This mana, it's not his, someone else is inside. They pushed the gate open and stepped in. What they saw left them speechless. Shattered statues and crushed stone warriors littered the entire chamber. Wu's voice trembled. It's real. The rumors were all true. As they processed the carnage, a chilling voice echoed across the room. I don't recall inviting humans here. The hunters froze. The architect stood before them. This is an unexpected twist. The hunters exchanged confused glances. Was that a monster just speaking? I said silence. How dare you intrude on the king's slumber? They looked around, puzzled. King? Who's he talking about? Their answer came in the form of a lone figure, Jin-Woo, standing quietly in the shadows. Before they could react, a blur of movement slashed past them. Blood sprayed across the room. Some of the hunters were instantly cut to pieces. The architect's voice rang out again. You strong humans will serve as fine offerings for the king. Within Jin-Woo's vision, portals began tearing open across the sky, and from them marched armies, fierce and disciplined. Jin-Woo immediately recognized the banners. They belonged to the clans of Ricardo, Paitos, Roken, Inseras, and Raider, the very factions associated with Essel. As the troops advanced toward the Shadow Monarch, Jin-Woo spotted a massive wolf striding beside them. The soldiers halted right before their enemy. Tension filled the air. The final confrontation was about to begin. Meanwhile, back in the double dungeon, chaos had erupted. The hunters fought desperately, trying to hold their ground against the architect and his relentless minions. Choi shouted orders, urging his comrades to use all their strength and to evacuate the injured to safety. The architect, observing the chaos, smugly declared that once his puppets fell, the survivors would be honored to witness the birth of a king, assuming anyone lives through it. A towering stone soldier lunged at the hunters. Choi ordered a retreat, diving to the side just in time before hurling a fireball straight at the creature's face. Seizing the moment, he commanded the others to go for the statues. Wu charged in, landing a heavy punch, but to his surprise, it didn't even scratch the monster. Another fireball followed, but it too proved useless. Choi realized the harsh truth. Their physical and magical attacks were barely making a dent. Their hope dwindling, Choi came to a grim conclusion. They had to wake Jin-Woo. Believing Jin-Woo to be trapped in some hypnotic state, he threw a fireball directly at him. But before it could reach its mark, the architect intercepted it with his own body, furious. In a blur, he lunged at Choi, declaring, "How dare you attempt to disturb the king's rest?" Paralyzed by the overwhelming pressure, Choi braced himself for death. Just then, Woo and several hunters blocked the architect's path. Woo turned to Cha, telling her to focus on waking Jin-Woo while they bought her time. Back in the vision, Jin-Woo watched as the demon clans clashed with the Shadow Army. Despite being overwhelmed, the shadows resurrected over and over. Jin-Woo marveled, thinking, if they were my shadows, I would have run out of mana long ago. It's like his power has no bottom. The spectacle made Jin-Woo wonder, was the Shadow Monarch not on the same side as the monsters? Was there internal strife? Eventually the battlefield fell silent. The Shadow Monarch approached the defeated demon commander, his tone heavy. We could have ended the war today. Why did you betray me? The demon, defiant, replied, a shame I couldn't kill you. Irritated, the monarch demanded an answer once more, but the creature muttered something in a language Jin-Woo couldn't understand. Furious, the monarch grabbed him by the mouth and crushed his face. Still alive, the demon collapsed to his knees. As the monarch examined his eyes, something clicked in his memory. He removed the demon's helmet and froze. It was Baron, the demon king. Confused, the Shadow Monarch looked down at his own hands, finally realizing the truth. He wasn't watching someone else's memory. He was reliving it. He had been the one to fight the Silver Army and the demon clans. It had been him all along. He wondered, how didn't I notice? Looking at his chest, he sensed something strange. 2 heartbeats. One was human, the other pitch black. Suddenly, silver-armored soldiers descended from the skies above him. A system message appeared. Playback of stored data has concluded. Back in the dungeon, the architect faced off against Cha. You're quite intriguing. Why don't you push just a little further? Cha unleashed her skill, sword dance, but the architect blocked it effortlessly and retaliated, slashing her shoulder. Screaming, she stumbled backward. He coldly explained that the system behind this dungeon predicted every possibility. Their weapons were ineffective here. Just then, a blow struck his face. It was Choi, rallying the others. Wake Jin-Woo up. It's our only chance. Seizing the opening, Cha bolted toward Jin-Woo. But as she neared him, the architect reappeared behind her, hand reaching out. She barely dodged in time. The creature paused, its gaze fixing on the strange shadow that crept across her shoulder. Guys, I'm curious if Baru had been there instead, witnessing the humiliation of his king's queen. Then what would happen? Anyways, he asked, what is your connection to Jin-Woo? She answered, we're friends, and I came to save him. Hearing that, the architect smirked. Then I'll grant you a front row seat. Today marks the rebirth of one of this world's greatest monarchs. You may watch, but the rest of the humans must die. Just then a voice interrupted. Who decided that? A fist shattered the architect's jaw. It was Jin-Woo. The room fell silent. The hunters, seeing him awake, breathed a collective sigh of relief. Jin-Woo had returned. Without hesitation, Jin-Woo drove his foot into the architect's face, grinding him into the ground. What have you done to my body? You're not the king. How can you control yourself after receiving the Black Heart? Jin-Woo's eyes narrowed. So the mysterious power had come from the Black Heart. A notification appeared. Mana increased by 100,000. From the architect's reaction, Jin-Woo deduced 2 things. First, this outcome wasn't expected. And second, the Black Heart wasn't meant to help him. The data he had absorbed was not the answer, it was merely a glimpse into something deeper. You said you opposed making me the player, so why choose someone at all? What were you trying to do to me? The architect didn't respond. Instead, he screamed, Shadow Monarch, you've sealed our fate. Do you think the other monarchs will stay silent after this? Drawing his daggers, Jin-Woo glared and growled, just answer the question. Other hunters were suddenly filled with dread as they noticed something terrifying. Every statue that had been motionless moments ago had now come to life. Panic spread among them as they realized the danger had just multiplied. The architect, grinning darkly, looked at Jin-Woo and said, If you kill me now, no one will be able to stop my creations. Are you still willing to take that risk? Jin-Woo's eyes narrowed, his voice cold. And what if I kill you and destroy your puppets? The architect tried to warn him again. If I die, the system will collapse with me. But Jin-Woo wasn't fooled. A small smirk tugged at the corner of his lips. There's always the possibility I could end up back as an E-rank hunter. I've considered that too. Just because the one who designed the system vanishes, doesn't mean the system itself will disappear. The architect tried to call upon the system, but something was wrong. Red warning notifications started flashing in front of him. Access denied. Again and again the messages appeared, cutting him off. Confused and alarmed, he turned to Jin-Woo, who stared him down. I am going to destroy the system. I'll absorb it completely. No, this must be a malfunction. A glitch in the system, he shouted in disbelief. But before he could say anything more, Jin-Woo darted forward and sliced him apart with his daggers. The architect's body shattered into fragments. In his dying breath, the architect uttered a chilling prophecy. When the pillars of flame that hold the heavens rise, a death you cannot escape will come for you. Outside the dungeon, members of the Hunter Association stood waiting anxiously. It had been over an hour since the elite hunter guild entered, and no word had come out. Murmurs spread through the crowd. Then, finally, figures began emerging from the gate. The observers were shocked at the condition of the survivors. These were the best of the hunter guild, one of them whispered. What on earth happened inside the searing gate? From the rear of the group, Jin-Woo also walked out, deep in thought. The architect of the system is gone. But I still don't have all the answers I came looking for. Woo Jin-Chul approached him, his expression serious. Around 20 of the top-ranking hunters died in there. If this had turned into a dungeon break, the damage could have been catastrophic. He then asked, How did you know there was a double dungeon inside this gate? Jin-Woo replied calmly, The dungeon called to me. I received the message, telling me to come here. Surprised, Woo asked, Can we see this message? But Jin-Woo shook his head. It was a message that appeared only in my mind. Woo stared at him, realizing from Jin-Woo's expression that this was no joke, not with so many lives lost. Hunter Cha approached, concern on her face. Are you okay? Jin-Woo responded, I'm fine. But before he could say more, his body gave out. He collapsed, falling to the ground. The hunters nearby gasped and rushed to his side, fear and urgency spreading through the crowd.
The scene then shifted to Japan, where trucks loaded with mana crystals made their way toward the massive S-rank gate, prompting Hunter Yuri to remark that 200,000 tons of mana crystals would be sufficient to fuel the magic circle's energy, and as he erected a powerful force field around the gate using the crystal's mana, he sensed something unusual nearby. When questioned by the man beside him if all was all right, Yuri replied that although the barrier was flawless, he could detect a presence but clarified that he never said it was human. As the scene revealed a mysterious figure perched atop a building, observing everything and noting that Yuri's sharp senses were unsurprising given his strength, while musing that events were unfolding as foreseen in the inevitable tragedy. Meanwhile, as the military positioned itself around the gate, Kenny questioned Sugimoto about the purpose of mobilizing modern weaponry against monsters immune to such attacks, to which Sugimoto explained that in case Yuri failed, the army's role was to buy time for the elite hunters to prepare, and despite Kenny's observation that they were merely sacrificial pawns, Sugimoto admitted that even the hunters at the front lines were not much different. Back at the site, Yuri inspected the area, boasting that if things went smoothly, he could handle the S-rank gate single-handedly and secretly wished to be recognized as the man who cleared it alone, though he realistically admitted there was already someone better suited for such glory. Taking a drink to calm his nerves, despite a warning from his companion, Yuri promised to deliver an unforgettable spectacle and asked how many S-rank hunters were standing by, learning that there were 15 in total. When questioning why the United States hadn't sent reinforcements, he was informed that new S-rank gates had appeared in Maryland, England, and India, explaining the lack of support. As they conversed, the gate began to break apart. Before we dive in, I want to take a moment to sincerely thank all of you. We started this channel just 15 days ago, and the support we've received has been truly overwhelming. I'm incredibly grateful. I'll be covering the entire solo leveling manhwa. Feel free to leave a comment with any suggestions or feedback on how I can improve. So,
If you want to follow this epic journey and enjoy every episode, make sure to subscribe and join us as we complete this masterpiece together. Shifting the scene to Jin-Woo, who woke up in a hospital bed with Jin-Ho by his side, explaining tearfully that Jin-Woo had been unconscious for 3 days. Concerned, Jin-Woo immediately asked about the S-rank gate in Japan, leading to a flashback of the dungeon break day when giant monsters, creatures powerful enough to be bosses of A-rank gates, poured out of the portal in massive numbers. Initially confident in his barrier, Yuri watched in horror as a towering giant easily slashed through it with a single swing of its weapon. Returning to the present, Jin-Ho recounted all these events to Jin-Woo. Meanwhile, Yu Myung-han awoke from a near day-long slumber in his office, with his secretary informing him they were moments away from taking him to the hospital as he had instructed. Presented with a file detailing someone cured of eternal slumber, revealed to be Jin-Woo's mother, Yu Myung-han pondered if Jin-Woo possessed the ability to heal the incurable. Informed of a visitor, he met a woman who immediately expressed concern over his condition. In Japan, chaos erupted as Yuri was devoured whole by one of the colossal monsters, while the military's weapons proved utterly ineffective. Sugimoto ordered the S-rank hunters to engage, but despite their efforts to target the giant's eyes, the monsters, surprisingly swift for their size, evaded every strike, leaving Kanai in disbelief. Jin-Woo, observing all this footage in his room, feared a disaster worse than Jeju Island could engulf all of Asia if left unchecked, considering heading to Japan, but was stopped by his sister, who sensed his intent. Jin-Woo reassured her that he had no plans to leave and promised to rest for a while, although inwardly he worried about her sudden anxiety, recalling she hadn't stopped him since his very first raid 4 years ago. Later, while walking outside and summoning Buru to assess his sister's mental state, he was relieved to hear there was nothing abnormal, yet remained concerned about her trauma. Interrupted by a car, he was soon sitting across from Yu Myung-han at the Eugene Guild's office, where the CEO introduced himself and, displaying a blank check, humbly expressed his desire to buy Jin-Woo's help, clarifying that he too suffered from the same incurable illness that once afflicted Jin-Woo's mother. Upon learning that only a handful of people knew of Yu's condition, Jin-Woo realized the seriousness of the situation as Yu earnestly asked for his assistance, promising eternal gratitude, while Jin-Woo silently contemplated the needs of his sister, who too might need the potion to heal from her psychological scars. In Japan, the scene shifted to a group of reporters flying above the devastated city, documenting the catastrophic events unfolding below. One reporter, visibly uneasy, voiced his fear about what would happen if the creatures decided to attack them, but a colleague reassured him that as long as they maintained a safe distance, they were in no danger, a fact that multiple researchers had confirmed, making it reliable. They turned their attention to the leader of the giants, noticing that the largest one was stationed at the gate while the rest roamed the city, leading to the belief that the giants were either awaiting someone or protecting the gate, and with only 2 out of the 30 giants eliminated over the past 2 days, there was growing concern that if they weren't stopped soon, the entire world could fall into ruin. Back in Jin-Woo's office, Jin-Ho was alarmed upon hearing that Jin-Woo intended to head to Japan, trying to dissuade him by explaining that this situation was unlike the Jeju Island incident, and that monsters of this magnitude were anything but normal. But Jin-Woo responded confidently, saying that if he succeeded, the Ajin Guild's reputation would soar globally, though Jin-Woo noticed even Jin-Ho, who usually had unwavering faith in him, was now anxious. Jin-Ho agreed to let Jin-Woo go only if he accompanied him, bringing up the Red Gate incident, the Jeju Island raid, and the double dungeon event, pointing out a common thread: Jin-Woo's absence from any news coverage, and admitted that the only thing he could boast about was simply being by Jin-Woo's side, calling him his sole source of pride, which made Jin-Woo chuckle, remarking that he didn't expect such sentiment from the son of a millionaire. Jin-Ho reaffirmed his trust, saying that if Jin-Woo deemed it safe, it would be safe for him too, prompting Jin-Woo to stand up and claim he was only joking about going to Japan, urging Jin-Ho to head home. Yet deep down, as he walked away, Jin-Woo reflected on the architect and the double dungeon, realizing that there was still being stronger than himself in this vast world, and that he needed to continue growing. Upon arriving home, he was warmly greeted by his mother, and during dinner asked about his sister, only to learn that she had lost her appetite, which made him think about Jin-Ho's father and the uncertainty surrounding his illness. knowing that the remaining holy water of life was scarce and precious. After finishing his meal, Jin-Woo decided to head out again, telling himself that despite stronger beings existing, as long as he kept growing, he had to step into the battlefield. Before leaving, he stopped by his sister's room, asking for a moment to talk. Sitting beside her and wondering how to begin, he confessed that he had recently come close to death and, unlike other times, truly believed he wouldn't make it, but fortunately, he survived. Feeling grateful every time he returned home alive and gently patting her head, he comforted her, promising he would return safely this time too. With tears welling up in her eyes, she accused him of leaving regardless of her protests, to which he admitted she was right, but reassured her that he would always come back to protect her no matter how far away he was. Soon after, the scene shifted to a press conference where Chairman Go Gun-hee addressed the dungeon break crisis in Japan, announcing that Jin-Woo had made the decision to face the S-rank gate there. At the airport, just as Jin-Woo was preparing to board, he noticed Jin-Ho had managed to sneak along despite his attempts to leave him behind, and seeing no other option, Jin-Woo reluctantly agreed to let him come, and the two proceeded towards their flight. Meanwhile, in Japan, the military was struggling to evacuate survivors, telling the civilians that there was only room for 3 or 4 more and urging them to prioritize survival over hesitation, warning that staying put would mean certain death as the giants approached. Just as panic spread, soldiers spotted several giants closing in on their location and opened fire, only to realize their bullets were useless. Just when hope seemed lost, a giant was suddenly struck with immense force, sent crashing through several blocks, its lifeless body left behind in the rubble, shocking the soldiers. Turning to the side, they saw a towering figure, another giant, but this one was defending them, and soon a man appeared, urgently ordering them to evacuate immediately as the area was no longer safe. It was Jin-Woo and Jin-Ho, who had arrived just in time. Jin-Ho declared he would assist in guiding survivors to safety, while Jin-Woo readied himself to wipe out the remaining giants. Alongside Jima, the summoned beast, Jin-Woo launched an assault, with Jima effortlessly decimating enemy after enemy, and Jin-Woo slicing a giant cleanly in half with a single swing of his dagger. Elsewhere, within the Scavenger Guild in the United States, a group of hunters discussed Jin-Woo's battle against the giants in Japan, skeptical of his chances, noting that Lady Selner hadn't enhanced his powers, and asserting that no matter how powerful his reawakening was, a hunter's strength had its limits. Mocking Jin-Woo's odds of survival, they likened it to insects challenging giants, and started betting on how long he would last. But their conversation was interrupted when Thomas Andre, the Scavenger Guild's leader, stepped in, asking if they truly believed Jin-Woo would fall so easily, and confidently wagered the entire Scavenger Guild building on Jin-Woo's victory, advising them instead to worry about the S-rank gate about to break in their own territory the next day, questioning how many of them would even survive. Staring out the window, Thomas mused that although Japan would have been entertaining, tomorrow's battle on home soil promised plenty of excitement of its own. Meanwhile, in Japan, live reports were capturing the chaotic scene where Hunter Genwa's summoned forces were tackling the giants. Viewers witnessed one giant writhing in agony as it was being devoured alive by a swarm of ants, while another giant relentlessly pursued a young girl who cried out in fear, desperately fleeing for her life until suddenly a shadow swooped in and severed the monster's hand, making it roar in pain. It was Igris, arriving just in time to rescue the child, and as the giant reeled from the injury, it failed to notice Iron charging at full speed, who landed a devastating blow to its head, the force so intense it nearly drove the giant into the ground as Iron triumphantly stood atop its lifeless body, prompting Igris to sigh in exasperation at his companion's reckless strength. At a distance, Jin-Woo calmly observed everything unfold, and while he stood there, a soldier approached from behind and offered heartfelt thanks to Genwa, who, not speaking Japanese, simply gave a thumbs up and said, "You good, brave soldier," before asking Jin-Ho to guide the evacuation efforts to completion, and after ensuring everyone's safety, Jin-Woo turned back to the fallen giant before him, activating his shadow extraction skill to claim it for his growing army. At the Hunter Association headquarters, staff updated Chairman Matsumoto Shigeo about their progress in reclaiming this city, and hearing this, he reflected on Goto's words, thinking back to the moment he first encountered Jin-Woo at the airport, recalling that despite having met countless hunters, none compared to Genwa's unmatched presence. As his memory wandered, it took him back to when Jin-Woo and Jin-Ho first arrived in Japan and were received by Matsumoto, who briefed them that the giants were en route to Osaka and urged them to focus on defending the city, though Matsumoto privately doubted even Genwa's ability to handle the entire crisis alone and planned to seek assistance from other nations. However, to everyone's astonishment, Jin-Woo outright rejected the defensive strategy, boldly stating he intended to eliminate every last giant himself. The narrative then returned to Jin-Woo, who, having extracted new shadow soldiers, casually decided to assign them numbers from 1 to 5 instead of naming each one, and just as he finished, Baru arrived to inform him that another enemy had been defeated, prompting Jin-Woo to assign Baru's new soldier the number 6. Afterward, Jin-Woo told Jin-Ho he would use shadow exchange to swiftly travel and harvest the corpses, urging Jin-Ho to get some rest, all the while thinking that while things seemed manageable now, the real challenge was yet to come. Across Japan, the shadow soldiers continued to dominate the battlefield, easily defeating the giants, their regenerative abilities ensuring they could not be permanently taken down, though a new issue arose with multiple dungeon breaks releasing low-ranking monsters that complicated both evacuation and suppression efforts. 7 days later, Jin-Woo and Jin-Ho were roaming the battered city in search of remaining survivors and enemies, eventually stopping in front of the giant leader standing guard before the gate, with Jin-Ho lamenting the city's utter devastation. As they spoke, a familiar voice called out it was Miss Hankawa, who had once served as Hunter Goto's interpreter in Korea, and when questioned by Jin-Woo about other hunters, she sorrowfully admitted that no one remained in Tokyo besides herself, explaining that the giants had scattered beyond the city limits. Jin-Woo calculated aloud that there were 31 giants, with one having crossed the sea toward China, and Hankawa thanked him, acknowledging that his efforts had annihilated the majority of the giants, while his shadow forces and the hunters mopped up the remnants. Gazing at the imposing boss before them, Jin-Woo declared that this would be the final giant, and as he looked around at the ravaged landscape, he was struck by its resemblance to the demon castle, pondering whether that desolation had been the system's doing and what the now dead architect had intended to convey through it. Though uncertain, Jin-Woo decided that even if it had been a glimpse of the future, he would change fate with his own hands. This was what he had honed his strength for, the pursuit of unparalleled power. Telling Hankawa they were ready to proceed, she hesitated, mentioning the absence of backup, to which Jin-Woo calmly replied that they had already joined, revealing Ken complaining nearby about the tediousness of their situation, while Minoru reminded her that at least they were alive. Annoyed, Kene muttered about how they were stuck cleaning up after Jin-Woo's army, feeling frustrated by their overwhelming dominance over enemies the local hunters once couldn't even approach. One by one, Jin-Woo's summoned soldiers returned, filling the area like a dark tide until Baru finally appeared, kneeling before Jin-Woo, who smiled and praised his army, telling them they had done well, and finally instructed Jin-Ho to escort Miss Hankawa to a safe location. As they left, Jin-Woo began extracting shadows from the fallen giants, soon causing the entire area to overflow with massive figures, and without hesitation, Jin-Woo commanded all his shadow soldiers to charge toward the gate, while he stayed behind to observe. The enormous creature standing at the gate noticed the surge of shadows and prepared to engage, releasing a tremendous wave of mana, and sensing the overwhelming pressure, Jin-Woo was stunned to see it slicing effortlessly through countless shadow soldiers, realizing its immense strength after witnessing it annihilate hundreds in a single swing, and he admitted to himself that even he felt the instinct to flee from the creature's terrifying magic power, but reminded himself that there were only 2 ways to handle such discomfort: run away or destroy the source entirely. As the battle continued, Jin-Woo observed that despite overwhelming numbers, the shadows couldn't even approach the monster, and magical attacks bounced off uselessly, with the creature catching a fireball in its bare hands before easily ripping through the incoming ants, causing Baru to become enraged and prepare to join the fight, but Jin-Woo halted him, thinking he still had enough mana to keep pushing, and that he needed to uncover its weakness first, constantly regenerating his fallen shadows as the brutal battle dragged on. Yet even after solid direct hits, they couldn't deal any real damage, and Jin-Woo realized that the monster's entire body was shrouded in magic power like an impenetrable armor, explaining why physical strikes had no effect, though he remembered it instinctively blocking a fireball that nearly struck its face, suggesting its head wasn't fully protected. Calling upon Kaiser, Jin-Woo ordered his strongest elites into the fray, and Beru, utilizing his incredible speed, dashed straight toward the creature's eye, but the giant narrowly avoided the blow, while at the same time, Igris, soaring atop Kaisel, gathered electricity and unleashed a bolt of lightning aimed at the creature's face, which the giant again dodged, confirming Jin-Woo's suspicion that the head was the vulnerable point. Retaliating swiftly, the monster managed to strike Kaisel, knocking him out of the fight temporarily, but as the giant became distracted, Igris swooped in, forcing it to defend, giving Jin-Woo the perfect opportunity to launch an attack, successfully injuring the monster and making it roar in agony, while Beru immediately followed up, keeping the creature off balance so Jin-Woo could prepare for another strike. Summoning his best daggers and wielding ruler's authority, Jin-Woo bombarded the creature's head with relentless attacks, while from a distance, Jinho and Hanakawa watched in stunned silence, with Hanakawa remarking that this was no longer a battle between hunters and monsters, but rather a clash of monsters against monsters. Back in the fight, Jin-Woo unleashed a brutal, violent slash, successfully gouging out one of the creature's eyes, and gave Beru the signal to enter the beast's body through the eye socket, while Jin-Woo maintained his relentless assault from outside, causing the giant to vomit blood and finally collapse to the ground. As Jin-Woo stood before the motionless creature, a system notification informed him that the enemy had been defeated, and soon after, Jin-Ho came running over, congratulating Jin-Woo on the incredible victory, but Jin-Woo remained wary, realizing that no notification had declared the dungeon boss defeated, meaning the raid wasn't finished yet. Examining the giant's body, Jin-Woo noticed the absence of black smoke, confirming he couldn't extract a shadow, and just as he processed this, he sensed danger, and immediately signaled Jin-Ho to move back. Moments later, Beru emerged from the giant's mouth, and Jin-Woo pondered the astonishing fact that even in death, the giant's magical presence rivaled Beru's. While he was deep in thought, the gate overhead began to radiate a dazzling and dangerous light, which Jin-Woo instantly recognized as a powerful magic storm, quickly turning to check on Jin-Ho and spotting Igris shielding him from the violent magical shockwave. Observing the situation, Jin-Woo realized the gate was absorbing Fallen Giant's magic power, and when he touched his face, he found a small cut, something that had never happened just from exposure to magic before, leading him to instruct Jin-Ho to stay behind while he steeled himself to step through the gate and uncover the true cause behind everything. As Jin-Woo leapt through the gate, he found himself in a massive corridor, immediately realizing that such vastness was needed for giants to move freely. And as he advanced cautiously, Beru appeared beside him, asking if he too had heard the strange sound. Jin-Woo confirmed with a grim nod, remarking on the unpleasantness of the laughter they had heard, and suddenly a voice echoed, mocking the rulers and boasting about the arrival of someone formidable. As Jin-Woo peered ahead, he spotted a colossal giant, bound in heavy chains at the center of the room, and instinctively thought that this must be the dungeon boss. Then the imprisoned giant spoke, urging Jin-Woo to break the chains, claiming to know the ruler's schemes, and expressing the need to warn the other sovereigns. Yet upon studying Jin-Woo, it noted that he was not the one it had been expecting, and Jin-Woo, observing the giant's battered condition, asked if the rulers were responsible, to which the giant bitterly agreed, explaining that the rulers intended to use him as a tool to solidify their preparations for an impending war. Intrigued, Jin-Woo admitted he had tried questioning other intelligent creatures without learning much, and pressed the giant to explain more about the rulers, leading the giant to reveal that they were ancient enemies of the sovereigns, and when Jin-Woo inferred that the giant must also be a sovereign if he had been chained like this, the creature confirmed it, warning that both rulers and sovereigns would soon turn their attention to Jin-Woo, for he lacked the necessary power to stand against them as he was now, and thus he would need influence to survive. When Jin-Woo demanded clarification, the giant proposed an alliance, requesting freedom in exchange for aid against their common enemies, but Jin-Woo remained skeptical, questioning if he should trust a monster's words, to which the giant responded by chanting an incantation in a demonic tongue. And a system notification informed Jin-Woo that the King of Giants and Monarch of the Beginning, Ligia, had activated a skill called Oath of Faith, binding them to truthfulness unless mutually annulled. After seeing this, Jin-Woo cautiously accepted, and Ligia reiterated his plea for release, vowing loyalty, though when Jin-Woo tried to voice full trust, he found himself unable to lie due to the skill's effect, prompting Ligia to explain that this was the power of the oath, Curious, Jin-Woo asked why Ligia could speak rationally, unlike the other monsters, and Ligia inquired who he meant, leading Jin-Woo to mention the monsters emerging from the gates, which Ligia identified as residents of chaos, captives of the rulers whose prolonged imprisonment had eroded their minds, whereas he, Ligia, had preserved his sanity as a king through endless years of suffering, awaiting liberation. Feeling the depth of Ligia's grudge, Jin-Woo asked if the ruler's forces included beings clad in silver armor with wings, and Ligia confirmed this, calling them the soldiers of the rulers. Jin-Woo pressed further, wondering why the rulers were sending monsters to terrorize humanity, and Ligia explained that it was all part of preparing Earth to serve as a battlefield, enriching it with magic energy that would otherwise be absent by using bloodshed and the magical stones gathered from slain monsters, thus strengthening the world's structure to endure the upcoming conflict between rulers and monarchs. Grasping this grim plan, Jin-Woo realized that what humanity viewed as valuable energy sources were in fact just groundwork for a massive war, and when he asked about the war Ligia spoke of, the giant confirmed it was a rematch between ancient enemies, warning that Earth would soon be plunged into chaos faster than Jin-Woo could imagine. He stressed that Jin-Woo's involvement had already set things in motion, possibly triggering moves by the rulers, and when Jin-Woo asked why both factions seemed to be after him, Ligia revealed that the powers Jin-Woo wielded were not originally his own, but had been inherited from a being who had betrayed the rulers, thus marking Jin-Woo as an enemy to both sides. Nevertheless, Ligia swore fealty, insisting he would fight alongside Jin-Woo, but Jin-Woo suggested that true loyalty would be better proven by becoming a shadow soldier. However, Ligia declined, explaining that monarchs and rulers were tied to spiritual forms, and that once slain, they could not be raised as shadows. Ligia asked if he had earned Jin-Woo's trust, but as Jin-Woo moved closer to free him, he couldn't shake the nagging feeling that something was wrong, and he paused to clarify whether Ligia was truly on the side of humans. Ligia's silence, enforced by the oath of faith, spoke volumes, and Jin-Woo, suspicious, noticed a glowing crystal embedded in Ligia's neck, realizing that, just like the other monsters, he was likely still bound by the ruler's command to kill humans. When Jin-Woo confronted him, Ligia lunged in desperation, but Jin-Woo easily dodged, declaring the deal null and plunging his weapon into Ligia's chest, acknowledging that Ligia was too great a risk to leave alive. Ligia, wounded but not yet dead, bitterly claimed that Jin-Woo was mistaken and that the true catastrophe was Jin-Woo himself. Still, Jin-Woo struck again, though killing Ligia, one of the 9 original monarchs, required another fierce blow, and as Ligia crumbled, he used his last breath to curse Jin-Woo, hoping that war would consume everything he held dear. But Jin-Woo, unfazed, finished him with a decisive strike, vowing that things would not unfold as Ligia had hoped, and with that, a system message confirmed that the dungeon boss had been defeated and that Jin-Woo had gained an enormous amount of experience that would take some time to fully integrate. Surveying the aftermath, Jin-Woo picked up a piece of shattered metal from the floor, remarking with a hint of disappointment that though he had hoped for a new shadow soldier, he would settle for this souvenir instead. As Jin-Woo steps out of the dungeon, a notification pops up announcing that he has reached level 122. Meanwhile, the scene transitions to America, where a helicopter has landed, and Director Michael and Miss Selner disembark, greeted by the national level hunter Christopher Reed, who remarks he wasn't expecting guests today. Michael informs him that there's something urgent they need to discuss and asks if he could clear the room, to which Christopher orders his secretary not to let anyone enter until they're finished. Once seated, Christopher asks the purpose of their visit and clarifies that if it's about an S-rank gate raid in the east, he's not participating, but Miss Selner corrects him, saying she's there for a far graver reason, warning him that his life may be in danger. Visibly angered, Christopher reminds Selner that while he respects what she once did for him, they aren't close enough to joke about death, demanding to know who she's talking about. Selner, with a serious expression, reveals that she had a dream about him, where he was surrounded by enemies. Christopher tries to cut her off, accusing her of traveling all the way here to spout nonsense based on a dream, and brings up the rumors tied to her awakening, alleging that her powers stem from her past life as a psychic, insisting that as a national-level hunter, no one could possibly kill him. Calming slightly, he asks, hypothetically, if he were to believe her, Who could he even turn to for help? Selna then mentions that there might be someone capable of helping, introducing Song Jin-woo's name, suggesting he may be the only one who could save him. Shifting back to Japan, Jin-Woo exits the S-rank dungeon, reflecting that killing the king had been the right decision, acknowledging the overwhelming manner the king had despite being chained and sealed, and feeling relieved that he uncovered the king's true motives in time. News quickly spreads worldwide that all the giants have been eliminated, and this time, unlike during the Jeju Island raid, it wasn't only Korea, but the entire world buzzing about the emergence of a possible new national-level hunter. Meanwhile, the giant who had crossed the ocean was slain by China's Ryos Kong, and in Japan, the Hunters Association's head, Matsumoto Shigeo, voluntarily turned himself in, possibly trying to take responsibility, though his exact motive remained unclear. Elsewhere in eastern USA, American hunters who had recently cleared an S-rank gate were preparing for a grand government celebration where members of the Scavenger Guild chatted about their victory, amazed at the lavish party the government had thrown. Thomas Andre approached them, reminding the group about the bets they made, joking about one betting his yacht and mansion, teasing a third man who hadn't wagered anything, and eyeing his tie as a potential prize. Later he asks his assistant Laura about his outfit, and after she critiques the clash between his expensive tie and Hawaiian shirt, he tosses the tie aside, agreeing with her. Laura then updates him about the upcoming International Guild Conference, mentioning that Korea's Ajin Guild is among the attendees, prompting Andre's interest until he learns it's the guild led by Song Jin-woo, at which point he smiles knowingly. Back in Japan, after clearing the city's dungeon breaks, Jin-Woo stood before the giant shadows he had just turned, commenting that although it was unfortunate one had escaped overseas, their forces had nonetheless grown considerably, and those around him looked on in awe, shocked by the might Jin-Woo displayed. Jin-Woo smirked inwardly, unsurprised by the reactions, and soon noticed Hankawa calling out to him, telling him that someone was on the phone. Answering the call, Jin-Woo's expression shifted upon hearing that he needed to return to Korea immediately. Concerned, he asked if everything was all right, and Jin-Ho, sounding uncertain, said that some family issues had come up and he was told to come back. Reflecting on how he had never heard his mother's voice so shaky before, Jin-Ho hurried to the airport where he was picked up by his father's assistant, who mentioned that a car had been arranged and told Jin-Ho to brace himself, promising to explain everything on the way. Upon arriving at the hospital, Jin-Ho saw his father lying unconscious, having fallen into an eternal sleep, and tried to approach him, only to be stopped by the assistant, who warned that the uncontrolled magic of a hunter could worsen his father's condition. The assistant handed Jin-Ho a notebook, explaining it was something his father had been working on before collapsing, and that he had kept it just in case the president woke up. As Jin-Ho flipped through the notebook, tears welled up seeing the scrapbook filled with articles about him and Jin-Woo, reflecting on how, just like before, his father had carefully collected every achievement, competition, and event involving his children, showing that his love was as vast as his expectations. Afterward, the assistant suggested they head to the residence, and as they were leaving, Jin-Ho felt a strange sensation but, seeing nothing, brushed it off. However, unseen by him, Jin-Woo, having used his stealth skill, stood silently in front of Jin-Ho's father, getting emotional himself and pulling out a potion bottle. Meanwhile, outside the hospital, Jin-Hee arrived to see their father and, on her way in, noticed Jin-Woo passing by, puzzled but dismissing it as she continued forward. Upon entering the room, she was stunned to find her father awake and staring at her, and overwhelmed by emotion, she burst into tears. Doctors soon rushed in, marveling at the unprecedented event of someone awakening from eternal sleep and wondering how the media would react. Outside, Jin-Woo, having fulfilled his secret mission, muttered to himself, "It's a little early, but happy birthday, Jin-Ho." The season is now officially complete. I'm planning to continue with Season 4 very soon, so make sure to subscribe to the channel to get notified as soon as we start. Your feedback is incredibly important and will help shape an even better experience moving forward.